Hello, my friends. Dr. Ken Bird here. Here's a question. How do you find encouragement and hope in times like these? For many, many people, the Bible is that resource. And that's the reason why you'll find a Bible in every hotel room in the Western world. In fact, my favorite verse remains the 103rd Psalm, which says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name." But in contrast, the Bible has been examined for its position on such issues as incest, rape, slavery, genocide, and many other issues that society suffers from. And see, that being the case, we know that the Bible is believed and reverenced by millions of people. And with that understanding, we know that there's no evil in the world that can be thoroughly eradicated if it's the same evil that the Bible condones. So we have to find a way to strike a balance in our thinking and allegiance to this controversial book. So let me ask this question. How can we develop an authentic approach about a book that is struggling itself for its own authenticity? I say it right off the bat, this very thought here, that as mentioned earlier, there's no evil in the world that can be completely eradicated when it is the same evil that the Bible condones. There's no evil in the world that can be completely eradicated when it is the same evil that the Bible condones. We must understand that there was a point when truth and the purpose of right and wrong were corrupted. And we must be aware of that. Without awareness of that fact, it's likely that we'll continue to expect the same things, and it's not getting us anywhere. We must acknowledge the deception. To arrive at what is true, we must first be aware that we have been deceived. Then you may search and discover when and by whom or by what you were deceived. So you must know that you've been deceived by someone or something, even if it is something you love. Even if it's something you love. So my first point in addressing this issue, this topic, is that we acknowledge the deception. But how can we identify? We can acknowledge that we have been deceived, but how do we identify the deception? From the fragments of ulterior motives that became a canonized Bible is what we come to understand and realize is the cause or the source of the deception. Now, we may not understand the deception because we are locked into it so deeply that it has become a visceral part of who we are. So let's consider what is meant when you say someone is a good liar. What do you really mean when you say someone is a good liar? It means that that person is very convincing. And convincing means being able to weave a lie and the truth together so it cannot be detected. And what has happened in our belief system over the past 2,000 years came from such a deception of weaving what is true with the lies that represented underlaid the ulterior motives of those who set certain belief systems in motion. And this takes us back to the well-known truth about Emperor Constantine and the Nicene Council. It is something that many of us are getting to understand nowadays, yet there are still too few who are doing the research and applying the understanding, because what has happened is that the door of awareness has been closed for so long about this fact. And when a door is closed, it's like the door is so tightly locked that not even the sunlight can come through it. And you're robbed of that vitamin D from the sunlight that you so desperately need. And we find ourselves in this position. And it is caused simply by what happened 2,000 years ago, about the year 325 AD. What happened is that the Roman system merged with the Christian system. That fledgling group of believers that followed Yeshua ben Yosef, I could say that followed Christ, I could say that followed Jesus, but then so much have developed to corrupt what really happened. For example, the word Jesus really meant Hail Zeus. And in fact, the man that it is referring to, his real name is really Yeshua ben Yosef, born of a woman called God by some, because in part of the deception when Roman system merged with Christian system. It came to a time when the proposition was made that the emperor would call together a council of Christian leaders with the idea and proposal to join Romanism with Christianity. And it means that whatever this council had in Christian belief coming from Judaism was to be blended with what the Roman emperor had, whose name was, I think, Floribus Constantine. He came from the Greco-Roman belief system, where they believed in gods such as Zeus, Apollo, Poseidon, and also more, and a female goddess whose name was Sol Invictus. And so the Romans are coming from a system where people were gods. People were gods. Now, as today many Christians who believe in Christendom's concepts, we don't think of any person, human being, that is a god. Not a human being. We think of some spiritual being high in the heavenly sphere. But the Romans and the Greco-Romans came from a tradition of beliefs that had men and women as gods. And that went way back as 3,000 years before Christ. And we inherited that amalgamation of belief, in fact, as a hybrid belief system, now that Rome and Christianity were to merge. And from the Nicene Council, we are set with a belief system about with the inclusions of men as gods. And Catholicism also took the baton and formed their doctrines based upon that belief system to this very day, and having images of gods in places of worship, etc., etc. So when we consider the whole idea, we must consider what is really meant when someone is a good liar. When someone is a good liar, it means that somebody is able to cast deception by melding what is true so well with what is not true, you cannot tell the difference. And we find ourselves in such a space to this very day simply because what was set by the Nicene Council has been promoted for the ulterior motives of those who formed it. And with advertisement and with wars that was fought by even the Crusaders, that was meant to foment that in the minds of the population ensuing from generation to generation and to this very day. So we have to acknowledge the deception. We have to acknowledge deception, and we have to identify the deception, and we have seen that the deception comes essentially from the Emperor Constantine and the Nicene Council. That is the ideologies that is etched in stone and also riveted in the minds of the Western world to this very day. But here we are, and this is the third point. And the third point is good news. The third point is good news because this good news says that the creator of the Bible, are not the creator, but the gods of the Bible, seeing that the gods of the Bible have the mentality of human beings and behave like human beings. Behave like human beings. And everyone can refer back to the Old Testament and what happened there. And I know to mention the Old Testament is for somebody to say, well, that was the Old Testament. But it's also in the New Testament. And not only is it in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, regardless of where it is in the holy book, considered to be the Word of God, infallible and inerrant, why is aberrant behavior still perpetuated from generation to generation in a holy book? That is a big question to resolve. But we find that the gods of the Bible are of the same characteristics of the Greco-Roman gods. And the question is, why? And the reason is that once pagan practices usurped true Christian belief system, and when I say Christian, I'm referring to that belief system that came together under Yeshua ben Yosef, the Hebrew name of the one called Christ later. Well, not Christ later, but actually Jesus later. Seeing that the word J was a more recent usage of a letter, and nowhere did people name their kids Jesus as far back as the 1st century. It came later. So we know that whatever we are holding on to at this stage in life and in Christendom came from the Nicene Council, which is a hybridized belief system that is die hard in the minds of people today. But the good news, yes, is that the God of the Bible is not necessarily the creator. I know some people refer to God in terms of the fact that there are many little gods and there's one true God. I know that. But essentially, when the word God is used, we see the characteristics of gods. We see the characteristics of God in the Hindu culture. And we see the characteristics of God in the Jewish culture, where there are gods called Yahweh, Elohim, Niseh, and maybe about 12 different names referring to gods in the Old Testament, and people would say, oh, they just represent different attributes of the same person, all that. But those are semantic garbling. And the truth is that just about every mention of a God in the Bible shows these persons who are really personal as having human behavior, human traits, human aberrant behaviors that we are best separated from if we must grow in true holiness. And so we must understand that, as mentioned before, as there is no evil in the world that can be completely eradicated when it is the same evil that the Bible condones. There's no evil in the world that can be completely eradicated when it is the same evil that the Bible condones. And we understand all the things that the Bible condones when we read the book. I know that many people who read the Bible and will feel that what they're hearing is untrue. We'll note that many of them have never really read the Bible through and have come to their conclusion based upon what they have been told, based upon simply what they're told by their pastors, their teachers, what have you, and never read it for themselves. There are probably things I may mention in this video that they have never heard before because they have never read it before. And even if they read it, they gloss over it because they have blinders on that does not help them see what is written for what it is. And perhaps having no discernment or have gotten the critical thinking to challenge it reasonably. But as I prepare this video clip, it occurs to me that no matter how bad the situation may be in society, people don't change because they need to change. People don't change because they need to change. They change either because they have to or they want to. So I present this video to help us find our way, because you will come across many things that you cannot justify as coming from a good, quote-unquote, God. But what we truly have is the Creator. God's our creature created, while the Creator is known by the creation. The reason why we can prove the Creator is because of the creation. While every time somebody refers to a God, it has a connection with a belief. And belief is only necessary in lieu of proof. What you can prove requires no belief. But what you know, see, hear, and experience as from the Creator is what you only have to affirm. You only have to affirm, because what you know cannot be unknown. Of course, unless you got hit by a truck and you get amnesia. That's the only reason. But the Creator is proven by the creation. And so I wanted to talk about this, and I hope we can all be benefited by the knowledge that is available today. What I tell you, you're able to research it so much easier. Once upon a time, you'd have to go to a college and get a 4-year degree, perhaps in theology or comparative religion, to understand it over certain courses of study. But here, you go to Google and there's so much information available. You don't have to do this. You can study and learn all this for yourselves. So I hope this make a difference to you, and I look forward to your response. I look forward to all you have to say with regards to the content here, and hopefully that you're blessed in your spirituality, because all we really have is that spirituality in us as a result of our dual identity as human beings, because we are not just humans having a spiritual experience, but spirit having a human experience. And so until next time, may the Lord be with you, and the force of divine sufficiency that enlightens you and awakens you and give you success and the peace you so bountifully deserved. So until next time, bye for now.